Where does aggression stem from and how is it created? This is a question that has been asked and tested multiple times. Verbal hostility, shoving, punching, pushing, minor fighting, all that kind of stuff, as well as other forms of aggression, can occur throughout the preschool period of childhood, and the degree of which the aggression is acted out changes slowly as the child grows and becomes older and more mature. Here's some examples of what some of that might look like. Pushing, pulling, punching, like I said, not sharing, just being uncooperative with their peers just to have a power over them, and then just refusing to listen or throwing a temper tantrum or whatever. The definition for aggression is a hostile or violent behavior or attitude towards another with a readiness to attack or confront. And the book's definition is a little bit different than that. It's a little bit more simpler. And it pretty much just states that it is the intentional injury or harm to another person, which is, yeah, that's aggression. But children begin to really start demonstrating this true aggression at about age 2, about when they start the preschool period. And that's why in preschool and kindergarten and that kind of age of kids, you see and hear a lot of little kids getting a little fights or little bickering matches with each other over stupid little toy or whatever it might be, taking a turn with a jump rope or, whatever the hell it is. But in fact, the weird thing is obviously as somebody grows and becomes more mature and more older, aggression is kind of viewed as a strange thing or rare for an adult to be expressing a lot of aggression. But actually, children who don't demonstrate any form of aggression in the preschool age and around that time are considered to be the rare abnormal ones, because it's a time where they kind of start getting the ability to be aggressive and have power and do what they want. So it's kind of where that starts kicking in. As time goes on, though, like I said earlier, the amount and then frequency of the aggression in the child should gradually begin to diminish throughout the preschool years. And when it doesn't begin to diminish through the preschool years and they start being able to express their emotions in a more mature way and be able to be in better control, that's where there's cause for concern, because aggressive child usually becomes an aggressive preteen, an aggressive preteen becomes an aggressive teen, and aggressive teen becomes an aggressive adult, and so on. And you just kind of get a chain or a train of aggression going throughout their entire life. But as children grow, they continue to grow and develop, and as they grow and develop, they should also grow and develop their coping mechanisms and their ways of dealing with their emotions and feelings and other negative things. And over time, they become better at regulating and controlling their emotions, ideally. And this is called the emotional self-regulation, which is exactly what I just said, the ability to control and adjust emotions accordingly to a desired level when needed, if they have heightened anger or sadness or whatever, just being able to kind of come back to homeostasis and go from there. But like I said earlier, this kind of begins to develop around age 2, and as the person grows, they hopefully continuously evolve different coping mechanisms and self-help tactics to help fend off negative emotions or thoughts or feelings or whatever may be troubling them. But children who are most aggressive in preschool tend to move on to being more aggressive school-age children and then eventually more aggressive adults. So while it's rare and abnormal for a child not to be aggressive during the preschool stage, after they get out of that stage, it should hopefully begin to gradually diminish. And if not, then that's when something needs to kind of start clicking, or you need to start figuring out a way of kind of helping them deal with their aggression. This really comes as no surprise, but boys tend to show more aggression, at least instrumental aggression, which is aggression that is motivated by a desire to accomplish a goal, like playing with a Hot Wheel that another little boy has that a different little boy wants to take from him. While boys tend to be more aggressive in that aspect, girls are possibly as aggressive, if not more so, when it comes to relational aggression, which is non-physical but is intended to hurt the feelings or the ego of somebody else. But where does all this aggression stem from? That's the important question, an interesting question that is sometimes difficult to answer. Many people have theorized about what causes aggressive behavior, from things like sexual urges, or simply just for survival reasons, or to continue on their gene pool. All of those are kind of things that people theorize as reasons as to why. But many people, like social learning theorists, would explain that they believe aggression is a learned behavior, and I kind of agree with that. And children observe and then imitate what they see, and they imitate this aggressive behavior, which causes them to become more aggressive. Like if a child witnesses his father beating his mom, he may have a heightened chance of becoming somebody who also partakes in domestic abuse when he's older. But some think it may be instinctual, while others think life experience kind of helps build the aggression over time. Research has helped kind of back some of the claims that aggression is a learned behavior, and it even shows that exposure to aggressive models will in fact lead to increased aggressive behavior. And Albert Bandura and his colleagues are actually credited with one of the most famous psychological experiments ever done, and it helped understand kind of where some of that aggressiveness stems from. And one group of children observed a researcher playing aggressively with a Bobo doll, while another group observed a researcher in a more relaxed setting and not being aggressive. Well, the children demonstrated exactly what they observed. The ones who observed an aggressive researcher playing with the Bobo doll also ended up being aggressive and playing with the Bobo doll in an aggressive manner. Whereas the ones who weren't exposed to the aggression tended to be more calm and relaxed and not partaking in that. And this leads many to ask a question of if viewing violence on TV or in video games would have a negative effect on a child's aggression. And it's even estimated that children's shows contain 69% higher levels of violence than all other programs on TV, which is pretty absurd and kind of freaky, honestly. But there's a large amounts of evidence that demonstrate that observing televised aggression does indeed lead to subsequent aggression. And that has also even been correlated that children's preference for violent TV shows when they're 8 years old is correlated with amount of criminal convictions at age 30, which is pretty wild correlation. But children can be less affected by violence if they observe a non-aggressive model. It works the same way. You can learn to be aggressive by observing an aggressive model, but you can also learn to be non-confrontational and non-aggressive by viewing a more calm and content model. So it's all about what they're observing and what they imitate, pretty much. But in my opinion, aggression is a learned behavior, and people's exposure to violence and aggression should always be taken into consideration and should always be taken with a grain of salt. It's a thing that has a lot of possible negative effects, and especially on a young mind. So that's pretty much my presentation. Thanks and have a good day.